So in a classic fresh server, the clear-cut choice for a pet is not as clear as you might think. There are 3 very important things you gotta look into to decide what's the best pet for you. First of all, the easiest to explain is gonna be the multipliers. Check out this chart from Wowhead, okay? As you can see, every type of pet has a different number multiplier for health, for armor, and for damage. Health might be an okay stat for PvP if you care about that. That's something you can consider. Armor is pretty much useless, and the important one, the one that you should actually care about, is damage. As you can see, the full offensive pets have the perfect modifier, which is 1.10. That's gonna be the cat and that's gonna be the raptor. They are the only 2 that have the best modifier. Close second, there's gonna be the 1.07 modifier. Of course, 1.07 means extra 7% damage. That's what it means. Those are gonna be the bat, they are gonna be the owl, the spider, and of course, the winged serpent. The damage modifier is so important that there is only 2 pets without a perfect modifier that are even usable. We're gonna talk about those in a minute. There is, however, a secret modifier for every pet, and that's their attack speed. Now, the attack speed is not from a family. Every cat has the same damage modifier, every boar has the same HP modifier, but the attack speed is actually unique to the animal that you tame. Every single mob in the world is gonna have a different attack speed value. I am gonna drop this massive list of all the attack speeds in my Discord. You can check it out if you want. It's like super long and annoying. It's gonna be in the Hunter channel. What you gotta consider is, does attack speed even matter to me? There is only 2 scenarios where attack speed actually matters. One of them is going to be Frenzy. If you are Beast Mastery, this talent, every time you crit, you get attack speed. And of course, if you hit faster, you can crit faster, more chances to crit, and that means you can keep this up for longer. So if you are Beast Mastery, that speed is a little better for you. And the other reason that speed can matter to you is if you're in PvP. Why? Because of spell pushback. Have you ever tried to cast a spell and there's a mob hitting you and the spell gets slower and longer and you cannot finish it because there's like 4 mobs attacking you? Well, that's called pushback, and it is really freaking annoying in PvP, and you're gonna see you can make it super annoying in a second. So for PvP purposes, the faster the attack speed, the better. When it comes to actual PvE, because you are not gonna be Beast Master in PvE, by the way, attack speed is pretty much worthless. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't give you any less or any more DPS. So this will only apply for PvP basically. That's the reason that you see this pet in here, Broken Tooth. It's a level 37 elite cat in Badlands, and this cat is famous because it has a very unique, a very special attack speed of 1, which is 50% faster than any normal pet in the game. So not quite unique. There is another example of a pet that can do the same attack speed, and that's gonna be the bats in Soul Korob. Of course, bats are not as good, but yeah, really unique, very rare, and very coveted. Hunters camp this guy 24/7 to get them for that very reason. So if you are a PvPer, that's gonna be the one you go for. Otherwise, it doesn't quite matter. Once again, this entire list is gonna be available in the Hunter channel in the Discord, so you can go check it out if you wanna find something else. It's just kind of interesting. Everybody likes seeing that. The next thing you gotta look into is the abilities. Every pet in the game has the ability Bite. That's gonna be your base ability. It is a 10-second cooldown and it does a little bit of damage. It does very good damage. Every pet has it. But here's the thing, right? It has a cooldown, and what do you do when that thing is on cooldown? You need something to drop all your focus. That's what we call the energy of the pet. You need something to drop all that focus when it's on cooldown. That's when Claw comes into play. Now, Claw is just a filler ability, but not every pet has Claw. And that's gonna be a deal breaker, because if you cannot do anything for 10 seconds at a time, that's a huge problem for your damage. Off the bat, as you can see, only the bear, the carrion bird, the cat, the crab, the owl, the raptor, and the scorpion have it. But there is a trick. There is another pet. The winged serpent has a special dumping ability. It's called Lightning Breath. It is a huge 50 focus ability. It is like a big dump. It does a lot of damage in a burst. And if you're out of combat, like your pet has full focus, you can actually do back-to-back a bite and then a breath. And that's a lot of burst damage you can do right there in a second. The other advantage of Lightning Breath is that it actually is nature damage, not physical damage. And in PvE that's a problem, because in PvE, bosses have a lot of nature resistance and Curse of Elements doesn't reduce nature resistance, don't forget about that. That's a TBC thing. But in PvP, nobody has nature resistance, right? So this thing actually rips in PvP, bro. It is also range, which is kinda cool because you can just chase down somebody or like stay in your distance, whatever you wanna do. There's a lot of tricks you can do with it in PvP. So the Wind Serpent can be kinda fun in PvP for that reason. I know you guys got PTSD from Season of Discovery when the Wind Serpent could like 1v1 you. That's not the case in Vanilla, they are not that insane. They do not scale, that's a problem. There is two other abilities I wanna talk about very quick. One of them is Charge. That's the ability for boars. They can just charge like a warrior. They just stun you for a second and they charge at you. And they actually do a little bit more damage as a burst later on. And that's gonna be important too. They get more melee attack power on the next attack. It is super annoying in PvP. It is so annoying to fight a hunter with a boar in PvP because basically with a boar they get an extra CC and they can just make sure that you're in the right length. Because if you're fighting a hunter, you try to dead zone them. You try to, if you're a melee, you gotta hit them in melee, of course. But if you're a caster, you wanna dead zone a hunter. You wanna get in between their melee range and their minimum gun range, so that way they cannot fight back. And the boar is freaking perfect at holding you in place, so you cannot do that. So boars are really useful for fighting casters and for just chasing down people in general. Boars are freaking amazing. They do not do as much damage as the other pets, but the charge, I cannot understate how important charging is for a pet. So that's also a really good option for PvP right there. And there is also dash. Dash is just a sprint, of course, 60% movement speed. The boar can have it and the cat can have it, and that's important. Of course, the sprint is just another ability to keep the pet attacking somebody. They are stickier that way, they can chase you down that way, but they can also help in repositioning your pet in a raid. There is a lot of situations, for example, you get knocked back in Ragnaros, you can just use dash to get your pet in position faster, and of course, a second less walking is a second more pumping, so that's cool. But of course, if you are PvE, if you are trying to raid, you need a pet with claw. It is simply way too much damage to pass up not to have claw in your pet. The last thing you want to consider actually, and this is kind of the annoying part, is that pets have a specialty diet. If your pet is not well fed, it's gonna do less damage, and if it gets really upset at you, it's gonna leave. So you gotta feed it, you gotta carry food on you all the time, but every pet eats different food, and some of them are just a pain in the ass. Like for example, this bat only eats fruit and mushrooms. Who the hell eats fruit and mushrooms? He's like some sort of freaking hippie or something. The best diet for a pet is carnivorous. If a pet is a carnivorous animal that can eat meat, you always have meat laying around. When you're leveling in WoW, when you're questing in WoW, when you're doing anything in WoW, what do? You're killing freaking animals all the time. So no matter where you go, you're gonna have something to feed your pet with because animals are made out of meat. You know that, right? So you just kill the animal, take the meat, and give it to your pet. Perfect. Another one that's very useful is actually the ones that eat bread. For example, the Wind Serpent eats bread and cheese. It's French. It's a French serpent, okay? So bread is very useful because that includes conjured bread. That's right. Mage food can feed a pet if they eat bread, and that's huge. How convenient is that? But of course, that's just like a mild annoyance. It's not like a deal breaker for you. It shouldn't be. So all things considered, what is the best hunter pet? I am not gonna dance around the answer. If you are gonna go PvE, it is a cat. Cats are perfect because they have claw, which is more damage. It is the ability you need. They have the best damage modifier of 1.10, and they also have dash, which is very practical for some situations, so they are pretty much perfect. I will say, however, that the Raptor is pretty much the same. The only difference, the only important difference, is that Raptors do not have a sprint, but if you're in PvE, if you're a raider, it is the same freaking thing. So if you think a Raptor is cooler and you only raid, you can do a Raptor. You can do a Raptor. My homie Gian plays Raptors. He calls him Shatner, like William Shatner. He thinks it's hilarious. Now, when it comes to PvP, you get a lot more options. Of course, Broken Tooth is gonna remain one of the best pets in the game because, as I said, they do the most freaking damage. Broken Tooth has the fastest attack speed in the game, so if you're fighting a caster, you just destroy him. And they also have a dash, and that means they can just run into a target and stick to them faster, so that means, you know, more damage overall because they can just keep chasing you. Broken Tooth is pretty much perfect. The board with charge is also really good. It is annoying to deal with. It is really good for fighting in open spaces. If you are the guy that likes fighting in the middle, playing board is pretty much perfect for you. The board is really fun. And then we got the Wind Serpent. The only value that the Wind Serpent has in PvP is that it has a Bite and Lightning Breath combo that does a lot of damage in a very quick burst. So if you like blowing up people, if you like throwing a concussive shot and doing your combo and just wanna melt them down, the Wind Serpent is pretty good at it. You can find a Serpent with a speed of 2, which is the fastest you can get, in the 1000 Needles. Is the Cloud Serpent. When it comes to the board, it's actually different. Pretty much every single board in the game has a speed of 2, which is a kind of a shame because actually if you look at the tooltip of charge, they get more attack power in the next hit, so if that hit was slower, that would be like more value, but sadly they are all 2 speed, so just pick up a random board wherever you see one and you're gonna be fine. And what pet are you gonna play? Are you gonna crank or are you gonna pick a board and be super annoying to everybody around you? Because I personally think that's hilarious. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.